This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Hi, this is Joe Rabil with Invest Like a Pro. So I've gotten some questions regarding how to catch some really powerful trends. So like some of the ones we've seen in the AI space. So I was going to just use NVDA as an example. I want to show how to look for this specific confluence of events in 3 different time frames in ADX. All right, let's start going through this. First, let me just tell you, if you're interested in learning more about these strategies, I would suggest starting with the book. I am offering at a discount right now. You can go to rabilstockresearch.com/book for more information. So I have the chart of NVIDIA up. In fact, I've got the grid monthly, weekly, daily, and hourly. I'm only going to look at 3 time frames today. However, it is important, and there are times when you'd use all 4, but when we're talking about this type of strategy and we're trying to catch something that's got some real juice behind it, some serious momentum, you have to kind of make sure you know all of the different strategies. And this is basically out of my course when I go through all the different things that ADX can do. So if we look at what we've got on the monthly chart. So let's just evaluate this to start. So we get this kind of deep pullback, which takes place during the bear market phase, right? But if you notice, we still have a rising 40-month moving average, and the 18-month is flat. We had a very strong reading in both MACD and ADX before this. Now we're on a monthly chart, right? And we get this big, deep decline, but look at where it turns right at the 0 line. Notice how green and red, and by the time we hit the bottom, green was still basically above red. We never got the sellers all that strong on this time frame, and the ADX stayed above 25 throughout. So this is a power trend signal. Again, something from my course. So something we want to be on the lookout for. So we've got this turn that develops here, but ADX is strong. But then from that point on, ADX is rising throughout this entire phase. All right, through this entire stretch from 2023, basically all of 2023. All right. So when that's the case, we can get this 2-bar, you see these 2 red bars, that's the 2-bar pullback, essentially a pinch play developed, okay? But more important to me is that this stayed rising. And when that's the case, that tells me I don't need to have a pullback. I don't need to fill in all of this space. Normally what I do is look at the midpoint between those two. And it's got pretty close to the midpoint of the high to the 18. And then you take the midpoint of that and you're kind of looking for that area. It didn't quite make it, but it got pretty close. All right. But when this is rising, I don't have to get the pullback all the way to the 18. So that's really important. And the reason is, if you're waiting for that to come back to the 18, you're not going to catch these really dynamic trends. It just doesn't happen all that often. Just briefly, if you could hit the like button and also subscribe, continuing to grow the channel, and I appreciate your help with this. So when we go to the weekly chart, notice what happens here. We get the move to the upside. We get this unbelievably strong reading. I mean, this is 60. This probably hits 70 to the upside, maybe high 60s to the upside. And then it goes to a corrective phase. And price is going through this sideways consolidation pattern. Now, MACD is working this off, but again, if you're focusing on MACD coming down to the 0 line, you will not catch this pattern. You got to recognize a couple of things in ADX to be able to catch this. So we get the move up, we consolidate, and then we make a higher high in price, but we don't get through the resistance zone at 500, which was very important. All right. Now, we had made a peak there, right? We come down and then we make a higher high, and look at what green DI does. Green DI also makes a higher high. So we've gone through a contraction phase where green DI is making lower highs with the price pattern. Well, the price pattern only made one lower high, but DI gave you a little early warning sign that it was coming. And then we go through the consolidation, and then we make the higher high. Now once, and I've mentioned this, and this has happened in the daily S&P chart, once this makes a higher high here, we can sort of assume that the bias is shifting back to the upside. Okay, so we're above 25 throughout this entire correction pattern, and now green is starting to kick in again. Now, we don't have any strength in the sellers, really. We have been making higher highs and higher lows, but we haven't been able to overcome the green, and we have not been able to overcome 25. So that's not really a problem. And in fact, the closest these got were about 4 points apart. All right, and it's that far apart between the green DI and the red DI, even throughout a deep pullback, you know you're in a pretty strong trend. All right, so now let's just review so far what we've got. We've got a rising ADX on the high time frame. All right, there's 3 time frames. We've got the upper time frame, that's this monthly. We've got the high time frame, which is in the NVDA, the weekly chart, and then the daily chart is the lower time frame. So lower time frame, higher time frame, upper time frame. All right, upper time frame has a rising ADX. And the reason why I'm defining all this is that you could have a weekly, daily, hourly setup doing the same thing. You want to be on the watch for this. And I have seen this happen on an hourly, 10-minute, and 2-minute as well. All right, so you just kind of want to know the structure, what we're looking for in the 3 time frames. So we get this move up. We've got strength in the trend. It's rising on this time frame above 25. All right. Even if this is rising down at 15, 16, 17, it wouldn't really qualify for what we're talking about. We want real strength on the upper time frame. Okay. Then we have a power trend signal here where we get above 50 on the move to the upside and we hold above 25 during the corrective pattern. Now, the third component here, let's just go back and look, is that we didn't make it through this key level at 500. All right, so we did get signs that green DI is starting to kick in, but I wouldn't call it an official buy signal unless you're really aggressive. And I don't, in this situation, I don't think I would do that. So then what we want to do is we're keying on 500, but notice what happens on the daily chart at that time. So that's right through this period here. We came up to the 500 mark and then we consolidated, all right? And we form what I would consider to be a rectangle pattern, or, I guess you could call it an ascending triangle as well, that ended up having like a little false move before it took off. But you wouldn't be looking for a bearish signal here based on what the monthly and the weekly are doing and based on what the MACD is doing. You're looking to get long here. But look at what happened on the ADX. We got a low ADX condition that took place throughout this sideways pattern. All right, and then the break to the upside is this big green bar. So I talk about a lot with my subscribers, and they've really caught on to this. When I do the monthly webinar, live webinar, where we go through and do a lot of interactive back and forth, I notice a lot of guys understanding the importance of the big green bar. Right after this, look at this. You could go back all the way through this entire chart. This is the biggest green bar on the chart, right? And it's happening as it's breaking out of a low ADX condition. Not only that, it's taking place in a power trend on the monthly and in a rising ADX condition. A power trend condition on the weekly and a rising ADX condition on the monthly. All right, so this is the 3 time frame pattern you're looking for. Power to the upside, rising ADX. It does not budge. We don't really want to see an ADX that is doing one of these deals where it's starting to kind of flatten. If it starts to flatten, even if it hasn't turned down, if it starts to flatten, I wouldn't really be playing what I'm talking about here, all right? Because this is pretty far away from the 18-month at this point, all right? Now, what the second part of this is that we do need this to work its way down closer to the 25 line, but it doesn't have to come all the way down to 25. And we're keying on these DI lines. Now, one thing I will mention just quickly is it's possible, and it happens quite often, that these 2 lines will kiss, right? It's very rare in a power trend to see these flip-flop where red crosses above green. It might happen briefly and then it'll come right back down. But most of the time we're looking for either the kiss or a separation between the two. And then we're trying to see if this emerges to the upside. Now, there are times where the trigger on the daily and the green DI breaking out above the prior peak will happen at the same time. It doesn't always work out this way where you get a kind of a heads up in advance. And then you can really key on the 500 level like what happened here. But we do want to be aware of what's going on with those DI lines, especially the one on top. All right. And then we look at the low ADX condition and the breakout. So we've got rising ADX. We've got a power trend condition on the middle chart or the higher time frame. And then the lower time frame is actually a low ADX condition. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll screen for ADX on the weekly above 25 and ADX on the daily below 25. And that's it. That's the only two criteria I'm looking at, other than the fact that maybe I'm going to say, you know, it's above the 40, or you have a rising 18 and a rising 40 or something like that, right? Just to make sure that you're playing an uptrend in this case. And when you have that, you can catch these. And we can do the same sort of thing when we can take a quick peek at SMCI. This was really the stock that I got the question on. So we've got our power trend condition on the weekly chart, which is the high time frame. We got the upper time frame with a clearly rising ADX condition. And then we had this actually an extended period of low ADX that kicked into gear and actually gave you a little kind of a heads up right before the big green bar. You could have played this in advance of that if you wanted. So there are a lot of different ways to play these. I don't go and look for these patterns. All right. They sort of just show up most of the time. And sometimes I really won't play them because I don't really like playing stocks that are extended. And this is a very rare condition to see a stock do this. This happens once every 20 or 25 years. This is not the type of thing that you're going to see on a regular basis happen all the time. So don't change your plan or your trading strategy to try and catch these all the time, because they just don't happen all that often. I know some of my subscribers did catch these patterns, and I'm sure they were keying off these three ADX signals that all lined up together on both NVDA and the SMCI. So keep an eye out for these, especially when you've got something really, really strong in place. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.